Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say hello again to my two great panelists. We have Deisha Barnett from Walmart and Oliver Roll from VMware. And I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion this afternoon about authentic brands. So here it is, hot off the presses. Today, we are launching Cohn and Wolfe's Authentic Brands 2014 study. Now, as Paul said, that word has been thrown around today. It's clearly one of the buzzwords of the moment, but let me just tell you briefly what this study is about and what our take is on authenticity. We're basically testing three propositions. This is the third year that we've done this study. This one is a global study. It's 12 markets around the world, 12,000 people that we surveyed over the summer. And we're really testing three propositions. Number one, what kind of authentic behaviors do consumers really want from brands? And how high do those authentic behaviors rank compared to other values and other behaviors that consumers want from brands? Secondly, in this world of what we call digital everything, when every consumer with a cell phone is a potential reporter, can companies afford not to be authentic because one way or another the truth is going to come out? And then lastly, what inauthentic behaviors are really driving consumers crazy in 2014, and what should brands do about them? So that's the very brief introduction. I just want to go straight to the findings. The headline is that we discovered that what we call our authenticity anchors are some of the most valued business behaviors to consumers across all these 12 markets. Now, let me just explain what I mean by authenticity anchors. How did we define authenticity? What we did was we defined it by asking consumers themselves what they thought authenticity meant. And we discovered a remarkable range of answers from our 12,000 respondents, which had a remarkable degree of consistency to it across the world. And we boiled those answers down to 7 what we call authenticity anchors. And then we measured those against other values, other behaviors that customers might want from brands, such as innovation, product utility, so on and so forth. So the result is that the authenticity anchors are the ones that are featured in blue, and you'll see that they score very highly on the list. And the number one thing from our study of 12,000 people that consumers really wanted from brands was honest communication about products and services. That was literally number one on the list. And the second thing to say is, before we get to the discussion, is that the results were remarkably similar in all parts of the world. So this was not a Western thing, it wasn't an Eastern thing. There was a remarkable consistency in people's desires for these authentic behaviors everywhere, as I say, from Indiana to Indonesia. So I want to turn to the panel now and just get a sense of what you think about those results and what they mean. Deisha, what's your take on it?
So, you talk about how surprising some of that is. And I guess a little bit, for me, it wasn't that surprising, right? When you think about, being the world's largest retailer in the U.S., I think for Walmart, our customers hold us to a very high standard, and we hold ourselves to that high standard, and part of it means that we have to be authentic. It is sort of a requirement when it comes to having a license to operate. And so it wasn't that shocking to me for those reasons. I think the other thing that comes to mind for me when I hear the results, especially again focused on the U.S., because my role is very U.S. Centered, but is just when you think about consumers in the U.S. and really I guess around the world having more access to information than ever before, more channels to communicate and a louder voice than ever before. I think that they just require more of brands, in general when it comes to communicating back to them, giving them more information and all of those kinds of things. And so it's not that shocking for me.
Well, Walmart does feature in the study, as we'll see very shortly. Oliver, from a tech perspective, what's your take on this?
Well, again, I like Deisha. The results don't surprise me at all. We can all get access to pretty much any piece of information about any product, about any company, before we even engage with that company. I heard a stat recently that says that 70% of buying decisions are made before anyone engages with a company. And I also think people are just fed up with kind of the way companies market generally. And if you look at most marketing departments around the world, they're very much entrenched in the old way of marketing that many of us grew up with, that I certainly grew up with. And marketing now should be about conversations with stakeholders and customers and enabling those conversations and ensuring that consumers can make their own decisions. So I think it doesn't surprise me. People get information from completely different sources today than they used to, and I think marketing is struggling to keep up with kind of the demands of most consumers and most businesses today.
Okay, so picking up from the point about struggling to keep up, I do want to take some questions on the subject, so please, if you do have a question, let me know. Here's the flip side of the study, which is that even though there is a very clear demand for more authentic behavior, as we've defined it in this study, unfortunately, in large parts of the world, in big markets, consumers don't seem to be buying it. So what this chart tells us is that large majorities of people in Germany, France, UK, Spain, Sweden, Italy, US, it's a little bit better in the eastern countries, but most people in the West certainly don't appear to believe that companies are being transparent and authentic. And I love the fact that in Germany, only 1% of people believe that companies are being honest and transparent. So they are undoubtedly the most cynical people when it comes to this subject. I mean, what do you think, Oliver? I mean, does this chime? Is this a surprise to you?
Well, I think in the question, respondents were referring to big business. So kind of there's a lens there when you think of the term big business. You might automatically have some form of cynicism towards that. But I do think it just speaks to the fact that dynamics are changing. People want to engage with companies in different ways. And the progressive companies are those companies that are enabling conversations and being transparent. I'm in the tech industry. I spent 20 years at Microsoft and have been with VMware about a year. And recently we hosted a conference and a panel like this, and one of the speakers was John Hennessy, the president of Stanford. And he spoke about just authenticity in tech and the whole of this Snowden issue that's happened, and basically said that, that it's a big black eye for US tech, and this benevolent leadership that was bestowed on the US for the last couple of decades has kind of just been smashed up because of the things that happened. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest examples of where just in a very short space of time, you can blow up and you can remove credibility and reputation that you have. And it's going to take time to rebuild that. And if things happen in the tech industry now, crises or data center disruptions, I think the instinctive rules and the immediate rules are immediately communicate with your customer, even if you don't completely know what the root of the problem is. Keep that communication channel going and just be very transparent with how you are going to deal with customers' data and customers' information, how you're going to deal with disruptions.
Right, and we're going to talk more about data privacy in just a minute. But let me ask you, Deisha, I mean, looking at these charts, a little bit depressing. Do you think this is a result of, my take on it is it could be as a result of more cynicism following the global economic crisis? People are just finding it harder to believe companies these days?
I look at it a little bit differently. I think, all of the research that we've seen, I think ties directly this idea of being authentic with an idea that is really based in trust. And I think for us at Walmart, we really think hard about who do our customers trust? Who do the audiences that you're talking to, who do they trust, right? So it's one thing to, as communications folks, develop, a point of view that is all about being authentic, develop, clear, authentic messaging that uses the right words, and we're all being human in the way that we're delivering those messages. But at the end of the day, for us, I would say, you walk into any Walmart store in the U.S., they're highly unlikely to trust, the CEO or the Walmart spokesperson, but they're really likely to trust the Walmart store manager as the voice. And so I think, another example would be, do folks want to hear from a mommy blogger about deals, or do they want to hear from the corporation about deals, right? So it probably is the mommy blogger who's better, who's more trusted. And then probably more trusted than all of those are friends and family, right? So how do you make sure that the word of mouth that folks are hearing about your brand and those things that you want to communicate is in line with the messaging? And so to me, this whole chart gets back to who do folks trust, right? And I don't really expect them to put a corporation high on that list. I expect them to put people like them, high on the list. And so our job as communications folks is to make sure that we're reaching people like them so that, the repetition in your messages is right and it resonates ultimately.
And it's the same in our industry, which is, the people that our buyers trust most are people like them. And we invest a huge amount of time in just building communities around CIOs and technical decision makers and VPs of infrastructure technology, because those are the people that just love our stuff. They get up every day and say, wow, I want to come to work because I want to play with this cool technology. So a huge amount of our approach is creating the communities where those people can work with one another, engage with one another, and just authentically talk about how they're using the technology in their organizations.
Okay, so far so good. I'm going to turn the screw a little bit now, Oliver, because...
on Walmart?
No, no, on you. We asked which inauthentic behaviors really drove people crazy these days. And this is what we call our global anger meter.
Love it.
Yeah, good catch on. Number one issue that drives people crazy is anything to do with food. Anything to do with a lack of transparency and honesty about food just drives people crazy everywhere, probably no surprise. But number two, and a big jump from last year, particularly here in the US, is people worried about data privacy and people worried about their information being sold without them really understanding what's going on. Is this something that many people in the tech industry are saying the industry hasn't really got its head around this subject yet?
Well, I do think it's absolutely no surprise that people worry about this and they care about this, and they should. And I think, at the highest level, what people are starting to do, I think, is trade off, hey, what benefit do I get from providing my data to cloud providers, and what's the risk that I have? And there's a continual trade-off there. But in many ways, the tech industry, I think, like most, is it's growing up. And we have old tech companies like IBM and Oracle and Microsoft. We have new tech companies like Facebook and Google, and there are hot tech companies. But Microsoft, when I joined, was a little prepubescent adolescent that made all sorts of mistakes. And I think a couple of years ago, Facebook, Google had all sorts of similar privacy issues that they then dealt with and had to deal with very quickly. So, and I think they are. So I think that the encouraging thing is that companies have made mistakes, but as they grow up and they learn, they are figuring out how to fix those mistakes and figuring out how to be transparent, and I think it's going to only get more and more and more important. One of the approaches that we take at VMware is that we try and partner with local companies in each of the countries that we do business with, because data privacy is so important, so that we can ensure that we follow the local norms and regulations and rules and laws. So it is a really important issue. At the end of the day, consumers do need to make a choice, but I do think the tech industry has in many cases grown up. In many cases, it still has to grow up. The good news is that directionally, I think the industry is going in the right way.
Okay, maybe we'll come back to that. Maybe somebody has a question on that topic. Okay, the next section I think is going to be interesting. We did ask people to name, unprompted, the companies that they consider to be the most authentic brands in each market that we looked at. And the results are really interesting because every market has a different idea about which companies are the most authentic. We've got comparison between US and Germany here, and also the global figures. Now, the good news is, Deisha, that Walmart was named unprompted as the most authentic company, this is not a setup, in the US for 2014. So what's your reaction to that?
I was waiting for the applause. You know, I think some folks, I see Elise Mitchell out there who has worked with Walmart for a number of years, and I think there are other people who know the brand really well. Maybe some people went to business school and read Mr. Sam's book, our founder. But I think folks who have studied the brand maybe won't be surprised by this, because we are, you know, obviously a brand that has a very purpose-driven mission. You see our ads, I'm sure, and you go into the stores and you hear us talking about saving people money so they can live better. And I think if you talk to the millions of people who shop our stores, right, that's real for them. They go in there and they save money on a lot of stuff that they need to buy for their families. And so I think you know, authenticity being at the core of the brand and our brand promise, and that being lived out every day for folks when they go into the stores, I think makes, you know, again, it brings it to life very naturally for folks. And I think the other part, I was going to tell a story, is about the company culture, right? So we all hear about that a lot, and again, being authentic in your culture and having that sort of lived and breathed by all of your employees every day is also really important. And so, you know, when I started to work, I've been at Walmart for 7 years. My first day in the office, you know, a young lady shows me to my desk. She's my team member. And the next thing she shows me is, okay, here are the trash bags. You know, here's where you take your trash out. Here's the vacuum cleaner. Here's the stuff to kind of clean your desk if you need some 409 or whatever you need. Here are the paper towels. And I'm kind of like, really, like I have to do all of these things myself. And so when it comes to the business strategy, when we talk about everyday low cost to get to everyday low prices for our customers, I mean, it just is, you know, lived and breathed through everything that we do and everything that we're taught from your first day, you know, working for the company. And so I think that is how we get to, again, living and breathing an authentic brand that comes to life for our customers. And so I'm really proud to see us at the top of that list.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Oliver, I guess, well, a question for both of you, which is, it's quite interesting when you look at these names, is that a lot of them have been through fairly major crisis in the past couple of years, and yet maybe they get credit for handling those in a more transparent way or a more authentic way. What do you think?
Well, I think people are ready and businesses are ready to forgive you if you make a mistake, as long as you figure out how to deal with that mistake. So in all of the tracking that we do of our customers at VMware, you know, the biggest thing that they want is just responsiveness to their issues. So no one can be perfect, and no one is perfect, and I think that's a really, really important factor in being authentic and recognizing that you will make a mistake and you will figure out how to deal with that mistake. So, you know, in Microsoft, you know, one of the big issues you have to worry about is, does the data center go down at Amazon and at VMware as well? And at Microsoft, you know, the immediate approach with something like Office 365 and that service was, yeah, it's gone down. This is what you should do about it. This is the latest information about that. So people will forgive you if you're authentic, if you're real, if you're transparent, if you'll describe the situation, and you'll make it very easy for them to get updates.
Deisha, how hard is it to be transparent in a crisis? Because it's not the natural instinct of any company to want to open up when you're under siege.
Gosh, how hard is it? I think we were talking over lunch. I think one of the things that sometimes makes it difficult for our team is, you know, we're 4,000 plus stores in the U.S., 140 million people in our stores shopping, over, you know, 1.3 million people working in our stores in the U.S. So somewhere right now, somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing. They're making a mistake, right? So there's a crisis, I'm sure, somewhere happening right now. Unfortunately, that happens when you're a company that has the size and scale that we do. And so I think for the comms team, for us, it's the challenging part is not becoming jaded, right? And treating every crisis with the same amount of urgency, because for that customer, for that person who is involved in the crisis, it probably is the first time that they're experiencing it, even if the team, on the comm side has experienced it a number of times. And so I think that's one thing that makes it really challenging as a communications professional, kind of dealing with those kinds of things. But I think for us, we always try to act swiftly, know the facts, communicate the facts, be really open, be human when we talk about them, and apologize when we need to apologize, or be angry when we need to be angry, and all of those things. And I think we try to do that consistently across.
One of the interesting things probably just worth touching on is, for me, and a learning we've had, is that authenticity doesn't mean not competing. And I think that's a really healthy thing to consider, which is authenticity can just mean, hey, be honest and be nice. But at VMware, I remember hearing the story about, we have a technology called virtualization, which basically turns one computer into 10, saves companies a ton of money. And then Microsoft came out with a similar product and started doing this very aggressive marketing. And the folks at VMware it was kind of being bullied at school. It was, what's happening? We're a humble company that just tells the truth and tells customers how it is. And this Microsoft is coming and approaching us and talking about us in bad ways. So what we learned through that process, which is being authentic, doesn't mean not competing, and it doesn't mean articulating your point of view very confidently and very clearly and how you're differentiated, but it means doing that transparently and honestly and openly. And I think those are two different things.
We're just about running out of time, so does anyone have a quick question for the panel on any of this? Any surprises that you'd like to? Yes, the lady there. Somebody, we're running out of time.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bruce from Fever, and we're based in London, consumer agency based in London. I just had a question actually about transparency, and I was just wondering, given the results that you showed, do you believe the current sort of setup for a lot of big business where CEOs have to deliver against short-term financial plans is actually conducive to acting in a transparent way, where transparency really brings medium to long-term benefits to a brand rather than short-term benefits?
Who wants to take it?
Go on, you take it.
Yeah, I think the reality is that the CEOs are held, at least if you're a public company like Walmart, you're held accountable to both, right? And so there is the short term, and yes, our shareholders are holding us accountable to making plan at the end of the quarter, but they also are holding us accountable to being successful into the long run, right? And so for us, we talk about what's now, what do we have to be focused on next, and I think you have to be transparent. Now, for us, the challenge comes in for the shareholders. Again, you want to talk strategy, but you don't want to give it all away so your competitors know exactly what you're doing. So there is a sort of line that you have to walk, but it's not because we don't want to be transparent. We just don't want Target, and I think there's somebody here, someone from Target here. We just don't want you doing what we're trying to do, right? So some of it you do have to kind of keep back, and that is a challenge.
I don't think any company has a choice. If you're not transparent, you'll fail.
Right.
And all progressive companies just need to be very, very transparent, both short-term, long-term.
Right.
And you just won't succeed in today's world without doing that.
It's a great question. I wish we had time for more. I'm used to being off air on time in my last job, but I'm 20 seconds over now, so it's time to say thank you very much, and I hope we can do it again next year.
Thank you, Geoff.
Thank
Thanks.
you.